Welcome to Newsnight. My name is Kenneth. Jesse here stories making headlines tonight. Minority Leader Haruna Iddrisu raises reservations on the increasing number of judges at the Supreme Court as Parliament's committee begins vetting of 4 Supreme Court nominees. Meanwhile, Supreme Court nominee Justice Barbara Frances Akayensu refuses to critique Supreme Court verdict in birth certificate not being enough proof of Ghanaian citizenship. Family of trainee nurse allegedly murdered at Mankasim in the Central Region call for the trial to be expedited as Cape Coast Court adjourns case to November 8, 2022. And coming up in business, IMF says Ghana's galloping inflation is as a result of domestic factors and not international pressures. And later, we take you to South Africa, where that country's president, Cyril Ramaphosa, has withdrawn a controversial PEX for cabinet ministers and their deputies that saw their homes supplied with free electricity and water. Details are up shortly. Don't go anywhere. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Now, the Director General of the Ghana Education Service, Professor Kwesi Opoku-Amankwah, has been sacked from his office. His dismissal was announced in a letter dated October 17, 2022. According to the letter, the skills and expertise of the Director General is no longer needed by the Education Service, and he has therefore been asked to go home. Professor Opoku-Amankwah was first appointed in January 2021 as a secondment from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. The letter also said 2021 contract extension was in contravention of the Human Resource Policy Frame and Manual of the Public Services Commission, as it purports to extend your secondment beyond the 3-year maximum limit. Let's now take you to Parliament as the Minority Leader Haruna Iddrisu has voiced out his reservations on the increasing number of judges at the Supreme Court. According to him, former President Mahama appointed only 28% of the judges to the court and expressed worry that President Kufuor has thus far appointed 78% of judges to the court.
The Ghanaian public is concerned about the number of justices at the Supreme Court of Ghana, and probably an invitation to Parliament and to all of us to look at an opportunity whether it's not about time for us to have a ceiling so that presidents that succeed Nana Addo Dankwa tomorrow don't do as they please. And colleagues, permit me, because as I have said, if you take the 4th Republican period from President Rawlings to President J. Kufuor through Atta Mills, we've seen significant numbers of appointments to the Supreme Court by the President in exercise of his constitutional powers under Article 144. But, Chairman, to note that President Mills contributed about 21.4% to appointments to the Supreme Court, Excellency John Dramani Mahama 28.6%, Nana Addo Dankwa 78.6%, from 11 to 14 Supreme Court judges. Whether he's mindful of the public purse and whether he's mindful he's protecting the public purse with these numbers is a matter that we all should be looking at. Here alone, 11 of 14 justices of Supreme Court. It has not happened. And Chairman, as we've said, there are also concerns that We've seen some of the appointment coming from the High Court. Normally, traditionally, natural growth processes, when you are appointed to the bench, you grow and mature with time. You don't bypass others at the High Court who are seniors before you, bypass other persons who are appeal court justices before you, and you just run faster because of political favoritism. Or nominee, as I said, this is not directed at you, but we are concerned as a country, we're benefiting from some political favoritism to ride faster and above persons who ought to be there. So, Chairman, the judiciary, sometimes even criticisms against them when they poorly deliver judgment and don't write them well, they say we shouldn't criticize them. It's part of political accountability for us to demand that things are done and done right. So throughout our history, Chairman, the number of Superior Court justices normally stay around 14, 15, not 19. So Nana Adudankwa, what's he doing to the Supreme Court? We want him to guarantee the independence and autonomy of the judiciary as a fearless arm of government that should deliver justice. But these are concerns that the Ghanaian public have, and we have a duty to convey it so that as a country we can take a decision going forward. How many justices of the Supreme Court do we have? I consider the Constitution provides a lower threshold, but no ceiling in terms of the threshold. What we do as a country remains a question that I'm sure the Constitutional Review picked up. But we need a strong, fearless judiciary to hold government accountable, particularly excesses of judiciary, and to ensure that both Parliament and the Executive acts in accordance with laws.
Let's have a conversation on the back of this. And joining me via Zoom is private legal practitioner Bobby Banson. Bobby, Minority Leader Haruna Iddrisu has raised concerns about the increasing number of judges at the Supreme Court. Does it really matter the number of judges a president appoints to the court? Can you kindly unmute your microphone so we can hear you? Hello, Bobby, can you hear me? Hello, Bobby Banson. Right, we're having some technical challenges trying to connect with Bobby Banson, who is a private legal practitioner there. We wanted him to share his view on whether or not the president should be appointing such a huge number to the Supreme Court. You're still watching News Now here on Metro Television. Let's still stay on this particular subject as Supreme Court nominee Justice Barbara Frances Akayensu has refused to critique the Supreme Court verdict that birth certificate is not a proof of a Ghanaian citizenship until she is approved by Parliament. This was after both Minority Leader Haruna Iddrisu and First Deputy Speaker Joseph Osei-Usu asked for her view on the matter.
2 of the 4 judges nominated for the Supreme Court appeared before the appointment committee led by Chairman Joe Osei-Usu and the Minority Leader Haruna Iddrisu. The committee was ready for the nominee judges. First to appear was nominee Justice Barbara Frances Akayensu, who turned down an invitation from the Minority Leader Haruna Iddrisu, Appointment Committee Chair, and First Deputy Speaker Joe Osei-Usu to critique the Supreme Court's verdict that birth certificate is not a proof of Ghanaian citizenship.
Honorable Chair, I cannot critique, as I'm sitting here, a decision of the Supreme Court. The only time, if you confirm my appointment, there is the jurisdiction, the review jurisdiction, and if there is a review application before the Supreme Court, and I am by your confirmation there and I'm empaneled, then I would have an opportunity to make an input.
She also answered a question from the former Deputy Interior Minister James Agaga that suggested that the Supreme Court is being parked for political reasons.
As a matter of practice, generally speaking, nominations to the Supreme Court are made when there are vacancies. When some of the Supreme Court judges are going on retirement. And as we are speaking here, a number of them have gone on retirement, thus creating vacancies, and hence my nomination.
The Supreme Court nominee also reacted to an Afrobarometer survey that showed lack of confidence in the judiciary, suggesting that the survey is inaccurate.
It is a fact that there is some amount of corruption, but I do not think that the Afrobarometer, the statistics that they have, is correct. Because when they talk about the judiciary, they bunch all of us together. They bunch judges together with judicial staff, with investigators, with prosecutors, and bunch it all together as the judiciary. So maybe we will need a more scientific way of determining this. But having said that, it is also a fact that even the slightest loss of trust and confidence is not good for the judiciary.
Justice Akayensu, however, called for an urgent need to intensify public education on alternative dispute resolution mechanism, on capital punishment, where her faith, morality, and convictions were against the law. The Supreme Court nominee insisted the law must be upheld.
Let's try our Zoom again and speak to private legal practitioner Bobby Banson. Bobby, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I was asking you that Minority Leader Haruna Iddrisu has raised concerns about the increasing number of judges at the Supreme Court. Does it really matter?
Well, good evening to you and your viewers and your listeners, and thanks for having me. I listened to him. I do not think that he does not have a right to raise these concerns. He's a minority leader, and he said that he is carrying out the concerns of the public. I do not wish to whittle down those concerns, except to add that in these matters, you ask yourself whether or not there has been anything illegal or unconstitutional with it. You'd have to answer that question in the negative. Because like he said rightly, the Constitution states a minimum number of appointees to the Supreme Court without keeping a ceiling. And as it is the practice, normally new persons are appointed when there is a vacancy or there's about to be a vacancy. I know for a fact that a few of the current members of the Supreme Court will be retiring either this year or next year. And I believe that that is what may have informed the decision of the president to start the process to replace them. And so if that is being done, perhaps my only worry is the suggestion that it is being done for political expediency. And that has been my difficulty with some of these discussions. It's okay to say that, or to ask, to question or to suggest that there should be a maximum number for the purposes of the public purse and what have you. But if the president has nominated 4 or so persons to the Supreme Court, and then in your discussions you suggest that their nomination is for political expediency, you do not only attack the persons who have been nominated or the person who nominated them, you also seem to attack the integrity of the judicial system. And that is the problem that I have with some of these comments. In any event, the minority has almost an equal number of members in parliament. And I believe that they will have a very large say in the vetting committee. If they have a reason why they think that the persons who have been nominated should not be appointed, that is why they are sitting there as members of parliament.
Right.
That is why they have almost an equal number on the vetting committee. So they should use that power that Ghanaians have given them as representatives to reject the nominations. So if they are saying that they think that the nomination has any not malicious, but political undertones that is skewed towards a political party, then let them exercise that authority that Ghanaians have given them with almost an equal number of membership in parliament to reject the nomination and state their reasons, so that if or even start the process of getting those constitutional provisions amended, if need be, so that we know for sure that the concerns that they say that the public are expressing are not being communicated only to malign those who have been nominated or suggest that their nomination was not because they ought to be there or there is any other reason apart from the fact that persons would be retiring and we need to replace them.
Right. Bobby, President appointing Supreme Court judges, does it really have any impact on our justice delivery?
I do not think so. I mean, yes, remember the president's appointment is subject to a lot of considerations and stakeholder involvement. The president always says that in consultation with this group, with that group, situations where actions of the ruling government or cases, let me put it that way, that have been, or rather simply put, that the Attorney General has lost applications before the Supreme Court. On top of my head, I could speak to the most recent one concerning the provisions in the Narcotics Control Act, where the Attorney General had introduced, or Parliament had passed the law, which seemed to legalize certain aspects of the narcotic growth or whatever as it is. But the Supreme Court, by a majority decision, struck down those provisions. So the person who wrote the lead judgment was appointed by this president.
Right.
But he disagreed with the position of the Attorney General on this subject. And so it is not automatic that the fact that the president appointed someone means that the person will toe the line of the presidency. I mean, I always hold the view that judges are human beings. They are bound to make mistakes. But as a country, it is only the judiciary that we have as a very strong apolitical institution. The moment we allow politicians to start bastardizing the judiciary, we have no hope as a country. And so whether it's MPP or NDC, I do not ascribe to any political commentary which seeks to bastardize the judiciary. They make mistakes like every other human institution. But that is why we have elected to have them there. I mean, not by election. I mean, as the Constitution has created the judiciary.
Right.
In every developed society, they make mistakes. They deliver decisions towards this way. 5 years later, 10 years later, either the same bench or differently constituted say that, okay, we are departing from our decision. But at the end of the day, they deal with the facts that are before them and not emotions. And so we should be quite careful when we start the narratives that seem to suggest that whoever is appointed by the president is there to the Supreme Court or to any other level of the judiciary, is there to do the bidding of the person who appointed him.
Okay. Bobby Banson, thank you very much. He's a private legal practitioner. Two other stories tonight. The Ghana Union of Traders Association will, from Wednesday, 19th October, close all shops in the central business districts in the Greater Accra region to protest the rising cost of doing business in the country. They are expected to reopen their shops on 22nd October, but will reconvene again and take another decisive step if government does not intervene. The Ghana Union of Traders Association will, from Wednesday, 19th October 2022, close down all shops in protest of the high cost of doing business in the country. They cite the free fall of the Ghanaian city as one of the reasons, and not even a 2-hour closed-door meeting with the Council of State could change their minds.
By the authority vested in me, by the trading community, I declare all shops in Greater Accra closed from tomorrow. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, by the authority vested in me, by the trading community, I declare all shops in Greater Accra closed from tomorrow, Wednesday, 19th October 2022 to Monday. What it means is that we are closing down our shops and we open for business on Monday. So Monday, shops are going to be opened. And we want all the the consuming public, as a matter of urgency, come and buy whatever they need. We are not punishing anybody. Whatever thing we are doing to help the cause of the consuming public themselves, so that prices will come down.
We're going to incur the losses, but the losses that we've already incurred is far much better than what we are going to face now. So we are ready to go to that one.
I'm telling the government to see our situation for us, because right now all our businesses are collapsing because of the dollar. So we are pleading to the government to see through for us. At least the government should do something about the dollar, so that the dollar shall be stable, so that the business should also be stable.
Although they have admitted that they will incur some losses during that period, but they deem it fit to do that to ensure that their businesses get back on their feet. They have vowed to take a different direction if nothing happens after Monday when they resume work. From the Accra International Conference Center, I'm Kenneth Jesse, reporting for Metro News. We'll be back after this break. Hello again. President Kufuor says he's unfazed by threats by some constituents of Kwabre East demanding better roads to vote out the New Patriotic Party in the 2024 election. When asked during an interview on Tech FM in Kumasi, the president said such threats do not frighten him.
No problem.
You do it.
I'm saying, people make those kind of threats. Me, they don't frighten me.
Okay.
Somebody votes for you, somebody supports you. It's because they want you to do things for them. I understand that. There's no need for people to go to my say. I don't want to watch them. But of course, mayor. But about to decide is over to a man. I watch them. I don't know myself. Obi and so and in Timsu baby, and they wow. The important thing is that we have a responsibility. I understand the responsibility, and we will deal with it.
Meanwhile, government spokesperson on governance and security, Pagrave Boachidankwa, has, however, refuted claims that President Kufuor is unconcerned about the plight of Ghanaians. According to him, the president's comments on not being afraid of the MPP losing votes have largely been misinterpreted.
Not at all. I do not think that President Nana Dankwa Kufuor, the President of the Republic, was calling the people's bluff. I follow social media commentary, and even earlier on this morning, I was on one of the networks as well, and I discounted all those assertions that people were trying to juxtapose to the very good intent of the President as it relates to his visit into the Ashanti region. Now, you would realize that the President did state that, yes, of a truth, development is very holistic, and as much as we desire to develop on a value chain and ensure that it impacts everyone, it's a process where certain communities might not have their development happening at the very moment where the President is there. But it does not mean that those people's desires and needs will be neglected as far as and as long as our government is in power. So I'd like to reassure the people of Kwabre that, yes, the president did not intend to state that you can desire to vote for another political party or not, but really for him to be able to let you know that, yes, I mean, your concerns are very well known to him, but in the midst of that, he's making sure that he's meeting the entire needs of the Ghanaian people. I mean, the president, definitely wherever the president does speak, becomes news for everyone to be able to put into it. And I'm letting you know very clearly that you are aware that on every electioneering year, we do not force people to go and vote for MPP or NDC yourself. There's never been a day where I have either come to you and said that, my friend, let's go and vote for the MPP political party. Anyone who goes to vote, votes on their own willingness.
Let's have a conversation on the back of this. And joining me via the telephone lines is political scientist Mohammed Abbas. Mohammed, what do you make of President Kufuor's comments that he's not threatened by calls for the MPP to be voted out of office, not anywhere than the Ashanti region, which is the World Bank?
Thank you very much, and good evening to your listeners. I think, first of all, if you look at the reaction of the public to this comment, clearly it indicates that the communication didn't go on well. So that clearly we can see that the president's response or comment or what he said actually politically didn't win him a favorable response in terms of trying to win the hearts of the people, which is what politics is about. You see, politics is beyond just the mind trying to convince the people, but to win their hearts. And to the extent that the reaction out there, in fact, today listening to one radio station, almost every person who they talked to didn't actually like what the president said. It angered a lot of people. They said so many other things. So clearly it's a communication gone wrong, and we have to admit it. And the person I just listened to right now, that what he was saying was his own interpretation, of what the president said, and I don't even see the connection, the link. He is trying to just do a sort of a damage control, and that even makes it very bad. Why would the president speak, and that speech is not so clear to the people that they get exactly what it is, and they are not feeling good about it, and somebody else has to come and interpret it and try to, and that is, totally wrong. So I think we have to look deeper than we are doing currently.
Right.
And the question I asked when I was engaged by another radio station was, 4 years ago, or even 8 years ago, will the president speak like this? And the answer is clearly no. He wouldn't speak like this.
Indeed. Mohammed, on that, let me come in here. Critics are saying that he's making such rhetorics because he's in final year. He has nothing to lose. Is that really the case?
That can be gotten exactly from what he has said. Because what he has said, I look at even the body language. You can see that clearly. There's nothing at stake for him. The way he said it, I'm not threatening, and then he even added into Uber, yes, I will do it. I will do it. You can see clearly that it's coming from deep down within him, unconsciously, how he feels today. So I deduced at least 3 possible reasons why he will speak like this. And the first one for me is that he has achieved his own fulfillment, which I describe as a political fulfillment, narrow fulfillment, which is about himself. He has reached the very pinnacle, of political career, being a president, attaining the 8 years. So, for him, he has seen it all. So whatever you do, that is not my problem. And then the second one, clearly, I see some arrogance that normally comes not from his person per se, but from power. Exercising power for a very long time, there's that hidden arrogance that it gets to a stage you feel you are on top, there's nothing at stake. And so I see that one there. And then finally, too, I see some sort of being overwhelmed. The president is overwhelmed. If you look at the current situation, economic condition, how things are not going well, and everybody bashing you here and there. In fact, unconsciously, it only needs a moment like this, and the way you really feel will come out. So I see some disappointments here and some sort of frustration also in him at this stage. So this, for now, I think are the 3 possible reasons I can deduce from what I have seen.
Mohammed Abbas, thank you very much for your expert analysis.
You're welcome.
Now, government will increase the salaries of security officers and ensure improved conditions of service. President Kufuor, at a meeting with members of the Ashanti Regional Security Council, as part of his visit to Kumasi, therefore urged the officers to continue to collaborate to secure the country from terrorist attacks.
President Kufuor on Tuesday held frank talks with members of the security service in the Ashanti region. Addressing the men, President Kufuor, though worried about security threats in the sub-region, applauded the officers for their vigilance in securing Ghana's borders so far. He encouraged them to remain on guard.
Terrorist outrages in Côte d'Ivoire, so far, by the grace of God, Our country appears to be the only one that has still not suffered any attacks. But we cannot take that for granted. We have to prepare ourselves to expect that at one moment or the other, we too will be the victims of this. And that is why it is extremely important that we arm ourselves to be able to confront it.
The President assured the officers that his government will enhance their service conditions. His comments was welcome with rousing up from the officers.
I ain't talking about the contribution of the central government to your work. It's also your own conditions of service and welfare. Recently, between the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Finance, you two have been given COLA. Your COLA, you're aware of it, that has come through. But apart from that, there's an ongoing serious review about your salaries and conditions of work that will come to an end very, very soon. And I'm confident that all of that is going to be positive and upwards and not downwards.
I'll bring you our 3 facts about the World Cup. Fact number 1, the 2002 FIFA World Cup was first held in Asia. Now, the year also saw the first time the World Cup had 2 hosts, that is South Korea and Japan. 8 years later, South Africa became the first African nation to host the World Cup, famously bringing the noisy vuvuzela to the world's attention. Fact number 2, FIFA's executive committee chooses host country. Now, interested countries who inquire about the possibility are sent a hosting agreement that details the specifics of being a host nation, information about how to make a strong bid, and provides the necessary forms. Fact number 3, Brazil has won the World Cup 5 times, a powerhouse of soccer might and home to both Ronaldo and Pelé. Brazil has won the World Cup a staggering 5 times. Brazil is one of only 2 countries to have won consecutive titles. So, need to make an urgent call, but you realize you don't have credit, or your very important conversation was cut short because you ran out of airtime? Well, there is no need for all that stress, because all you have to do on MTN is to dial *506# and you get to borrow credit on MTN Extra Time. The best part is you can also borrow data by dialing the same number, that is *506#, and you can bundle data whenever you run out to continue browsing as always. Your conversations don't need to end. Borrow Extra Time now and enjoy the things you love on your favorite network, MTN. We'll be back after this break. You're welcome back. The Cape Coast District Court 2 has adjourned again the case involving a Kwakwansa clerk, the Tufuhene of Ekumfi Akwakrum, and a self-styled pastor, Michael Dako, who murdered and buried a prospective nursing student in a residential apartment at Mankesim. It's time for business, and Winston Taki is standing by with the latest.
It's now time for business, and now to a false business story. The IMF says Ghana's inflation is caused by domestic factors. Africa Director Bebe Selassie said this on the sideline of the IMF meeting in Washington. Ghana's inflation is now 37.2%, which was caused sharp increase in prices of goods and services. Government officials have parried off suggestions that the high inflation is caused by mismanagement and have largely blamed on international factors. The IMF has also suggested a swift adjustment of policy rate to influence inflation. The fund is also asking the central bank to be forward-looking to help them stem inflation. Now, a bag of cement is expected to go up by 10 Ghana cedis as the cedi depreciation has caused a rise in the price of raw materials and a subsequent increase in the cost of production.
The price of cement keeps soaring as Ghanaians are expected to pay more for the product. A 50-kilogram bag of cement will sell at 80 Ghana cedis. As manufacturers in the country said, they have been forced to increase their prices due to the free fall of the cedi against major foreign currencies. The country's cement producers are hoping this will offset some of the cost of transporting the cement to other parts of Ghana. This comes on the back of a rise in production costs due not only to the increase in fuel prices affecting transportation costs, but also a recent depreciation of the Ghana cedi. The Ghana cedi is currently selling at 12.10 Ghana cedi at some forex bureaus, taking its losses this year to 45.1%. These challenges have been further compounded by supply issues for raw materials like clinker, which is mostly imported for the manufacture of cement products. Port fees have also risen, leaving cement producers with no choice but to pass some of the cost onto the consumer. The development may impact the prices of houses in the short term and the personal budget of many individuals who are currently putting up houses in the country. It could also affect the cost of ongoing construction projects.
Now, the Ghana Statistical Service has dared the Professor of Applied Economics at Johns Hopkins University, Professor Steve Hanks, to publish his raw data which he used to calculate his inflation figures on Ghana. According to the service, Hanks' methodology is not the globally accepted standard.
A professor of applied economics at St. Johns Hopkins University, Professor Steve Hanks, has pegged Ghana's inflation at 84% for the month of September. Hanks' rates are compiled using purchasing power parity from free and black markets using exchange rate data. Responding to Steve's figures, the head of price statistics service at the Ghana Statistical Service, John Foster Ejahu, has however questioned Hanks' methodology. According to him, it's not a globally accepted standard.
And you can't even price because you don't have all there. What we say is different from ours is that there's an international basket. I have Kobe in my basket, I have Gobe in my basket, I have Fufu in my basket. We place value on the importance the consumer attach to each item. And so we have what we call weights. So rice consumption may not be the same as maybe hairdressing, but his methodology assumes equal importance. On the contrary, if you increase total fare by even 1%, it will push inflation out of GA. And the total fare is not in the purchasing power parity basket.
He added that increasing salaries to correspond with inflation will rather worsen the situation.
The more we ask for salary increment, it will also have effect on inflation. So I think it's time for all of us to sacrifice and make sure we are out of the woods. But if we are not careful and we keep pushing for more, chances are that more money will be chasing fewer groups, as we were taught in elementary economics. And then we'll come to square one. So the money that has been given to you will become virtually useless.
The International Monetary Fund has attributed the high inflation in Ghana to largely domestic factors. This dismisses the argument that inflation in the country is due to external factors such as the Russian-Ukraine crisis. Ghana's annual inflation rate accelerated for the 16th straight month to 37.2% in September of 2022 from 33.9% in August.
All for business here on Newsnight. My name is Winston Taki. We'll be back after this break. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Entertainment news is next. One of Ghana's internationally acclaimed sculptors, Kwame Akoto Bamford, has premiered his much-anticipated docu-movie, The Art of Healing. The world premiere was held over the weekend in Accra.
The premiere was held at the Silverbird Cinemas in Accra and saw the gathering of many people from all walks of life, including persons in the arts, the international community, Ghanaians, and many others. The movie explores slavery and the healing process from the slave trade by descendants of those who were taken in captivity. Kwame Akoto Bamfo is the producer of the movie.
It's everything to me personally, as a creative, being given the opportunity to use this platform to not only express my sentiments about my people, the African people, Africans in the diaspora, but then also to contribute to something positive after having us suffer so much negativity, specifically African enslavement and colonization, and then in our modern times, the legacies of colonization and African enslavement. So it is everything to me, and it means a lot that I can not only tell a narrative, but also get to use the art to contribute to much needed healing in our communities.
Canadian filmmaker and co-director of the documentary, Darius Matheson, had this to say about the production.
Wanting to collaborate on a project, and this was the perfect project for us to make a documentary that examined the history of the slave trade from the African perspective, because it's a perspective we seldom see. So I used my skills as a Canadian filmmaker and worked alongside Yao Perry to create this documentary for the world to see, but to have our premiere in Ghana, since this is where we filmed it entirely here and finished it in post-production as well.
Just as many people present at the premiere, travel curator Nick Lotte was impressed about the documentary.
As somebody who was at the festival last year and involved with it, and everything that they said here, it resonated with me, and so I really enjoyed it.
Ghanaian reggae dancehall musician Episode has released a track list for his upcoming project titled The Atia Archive.
Song released by Episode some months ago has received massive airplay on radio and TV and has become a favorite of many. Even better is the high-life rendition, which featured celebrated high-life musician Kwabna Kwabna. Episode in a post earlier today on his social media handles released the songs to be featured on the upcoming Atia Archive EP, which consists of 9 different renditions of the original Atia song, including jazz, which features Katrin Sulwowski and Della Botry, hip-hop featuring Kwakwa, and Afrobeat featuring Mr. Drew. The Atia Archive EP is set to be released on October 21, 2022. The
news is next.
South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has withdrawn controversial perks for cabinet ministers and their deputies that saw their homes supplied with free electricity and water. The benefits caused a public outcry as they were considered insensitive at a time South Africans are struggling with daily power cuts and rising cost of living. Ukrainian officials say more than 1,000 towns and villages across Ukraine remain without power after massive Russian attacks in recent days. President Zelensky says 30% of Ukraine's power stations have been destroyed in the past 8 days. Parts of the capital, Kiev, has no power and water after new strikes. Germany's cybersecurity chief has been fired after allegations of being excessively close to Russia through an association he helped set up. German media have accused him of having had links with people involved with Russian intelligence services.
That's all for tonight. My name is Kenneth Jesse. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.